if you're carrying concealed, if you have pepper spray, if you have a stun device, if you have your keys with the alarm, you're probably not going to put any of that into play because your reaction time is not going to be there. Next slide. Here's some simple precautions. And y'all, and I'm there with you. So sometimes it takes some preparation. My secretary says I do the best at flying by the seat of my pants of anybody she's ever seen, but nobody flies well by the seat of their pants all the time, right? You eventually get called up on something you're not prepared to deal with. When I say always carry a cell phone with you, that means the cell phone works, which means it's got a complete and total charge on it. So the days you know that you're going out to show houses and interact with clients, make sure, even if it causes you to set your appointments off or do something different, this is one of those things that you say, I just don't ever do. I don't ever do this unless this is in place, which means you have a charged cell phone on your person where you can get to it. There are so many different situations I could give you about to where if a person had a cell phone, things would have been different. Now, we were talking out front, there are some safety apps on your cell phones now that you can put on. There's safety apps to where your real estate company, your significant other, whoever your safety person is, can go online and locate that cell phone, okay? So if you've got it with you, you have a locator on you. We have the ability in law enforcement, once something looks like we might have had a criminal activity take place, with the right kind of situations, we can start within a certain realm to locate that cell phone, even if you don't have that safety app on, but it slows things down. So if you can put that in place and put it on your phone for yourself and your safety person, absolutely do that. It's worth whatever little bit you add to your plan monthly to be able to do that. There are also car tracking devices that you can buy that plugs into the diagnostic reader in the vehicle. You can go up for anywhere from like $11 to $14. You can buy a subscription from the company that sells a little device. It's a little black box, for lack of a better term, that's small enough that fits where the diagnostic hookup for the vehicle fits. You'll never know what's in there. It plugs in, and somebody who has access to your account can go in and track your vehicle to where it's at and track the movements. You may want that, you may not. Just throwing it out from a safety precaution thing. I'll leave the bad humor alone. I'm going. But you can, it's really, if you're looking for your personal safety and it's your work car and you're out there, it's probably another thing that can be used to locate you very quickly. Always carry your car keys on your person, ready to access your vehicle. And that's both because of the key to the vehicle and the alarm that's on your key fob. So in other words, and I've done this by mistake, I've never done it out of panic, but I have done it by mistake many times. You've got that panic button on your key fob. When you go into a house to show, if you have those keys, something starts to happen, starts to spin out of control, you can simply mash that, and that car alarm going on outside is probably going to take somebody off their game or cause them to rethink their plan because they don't want to be detected, right? They don't want anybody to see what they're doing or what's going on until after they've got it accomplished. So if you can set that vehicle alarm off, you're probably at least going to take somebody off their game plan for just a second, okay? Also, having access to your vehicle, you want to have that plan in place. If I have to get out of here very rapidly, I'm going to need to have access to my keys. I tell folks, carry them in your strong side pocket. Now, females, it's a little different. Here's the deal. If you drop them in that purse, how long is it going to take you when you get to that vehicle to get those keys out and get into that car? So that's the kind of thing you think about up front, and you have that plan in place. Next slide. Here's a big one, and it's just not worth it. First time meetings with an unknown should never take place one-on-one. The first time meeting with a client should take place in company of another realtor, at your office, with your significant other or your safety person with you. It should take place to where if that person is formulating a plan, they know that they've been at least seen to where they can be identified. Does that make sense to you guys? So if you've got somebody who's an organized offender and they know that they've walked into your office, which probably has security cameras, I doubt that there's very many larger realtors' offices that don't have systems in place now, or they're required to give a form of ID that can be verified, or even if a third person has seen them to where if somebody shows them a mugshot and says, is this the person that your wife, daughter, whatever met with, and they say yes, they automatically know that their ability to be undetected and get by with something has been greatly limited, okay? So these three things right here, if you do those three things, you have probably narrowed your chances of being a victim significantly, especially to somebody who's looking to take advantage. There was a guy by the name of Bruce Siddle. He used to do a lot of defensive tactics for law enforcement. He came up with pressure point control tactics. The best thing about Siddle's stuff was it was all empirically grounded. In other words, when he said something, he had researched it. One of the things that he did in PPCT training was he went into prison and he talked to people who had actually assaulted law enforcement officers. Now, I would say this makes the leap right to civilian victims as well. You know what the number one issue was that caused them to act, to try to take that law enforcement officer out, assault or kill them, to get by with what they were doing? A lot of times it was one-on-one, but they evaluated that officer and they thought, I can take this individual. He's not safety conscious, or she's not safety conscious. He or she's offering their gun up. They're turning their back on me. They're doing all these kind of things. And that was the biggest factor that decided whether or not that person tried to assault or kill that officer. I would suggest to you that's exactly what goes on with somebody that you're meeting with that might have some sort of plan in place to do you harm, to relieve you of your vehicle, keys, resources that you're carrying with you. Hopefully that's all they'd want to do. Not the case in Arkansas, but hopefully that's all they'd want to be doing. But when you do these things, basically you're sending a message, especially if you're situationally aware, you're paying attention, you're not turning your back on them, you're aware, you're keeping a good reactionary personal distance with them. It's probably going to send the message, this person's not going to be an easy target. And that's a big deal if you're on the offender side of things. Next. When dealing with an unknown subject, have a safety person to call before and after the appointment is over. You guys do that already? You know about how long it's going to take, right? You got some estimate. So you call your person, I'm meeting with the individual, and that person, especially if it's somebody that you got that feeling about, but it's not so much to where you say, I'm going to probably push on just a little bit. And it might not be that you have a feeling about that person, it's just the fact that some things don't necessarily, single, usually it's a female realtor, single male individual wanting to meet, look at different houses. Even if he seems like he's a really good guy, a lot of times you want to make sure and have that person call. You have that designated time period. If you've not called back, that safety person's going to call you. And if you don't answer the phone, they know immediately where you're showing a residence and you're doing that kind of thing, or showing a property, and they can respond or have law enforcement doing a well-being check. Make sense to you guys? Pretty simple stuff. Aggravating, yes, but if you get in the habit of it, second nature. Next slide. Now, let's talk about personal defense weapons. Have firearms, chemical, electronic, and impact. Let me give you a quick rundown of that. Everybody's familiar with what a firearm is and rules around. You may or may not be, and we can discuss those because I've got a little section built in here for questions, because questions always come at this point in time. how does the Castle Doctrine relate to work and that kind of stuff. And if you guys are interested and you want to know what that is, we can talk about that and discuss that. But there's other options other than firearms. There's a chemical option, which individuals can buy pretty close to what law enforcement gets in the way of an OC, or oleo resin capsicum spray. That is pretty effective in stopping somebody from effectively being able to physically assault you, okay? Once again, with any of these tools, a lot of it goes into that situational awareness and you having it ready to be able to use and deploy if the threat arises. So you've got chemical, you've got electronic, taser, which makes our tasers, makes a civilian version of a taser that is a single shot, non-reloadable deal that actually, where law enforcement tasers, you take that ride, and we call it a ride, and we've all took it, and I've done it twice, and I'll not take it again unless they shoot me without my permission. Instead of a 5-second interim taking the 50,000 volts, it's 12 seconds, the civilian version is. And the thinking of that is, if you use that taser, you're supposed to deploy it, drop it, and run. Now taser, I'm not sure the exact cost, probably somewhere up around $400, $500, $600. One-time use seems pretty expensive, but if you bring a police report to taser where you have used their device lawfully, taser used to would replace those with a police report, okay? So there's electronic, and then there's impact. There's everything from Cubitons to improvised things such as your keys. I've seen a lot of folks that carry a key ring, that if they had that in the hand and they were defending themselves, they'd be much more effective than if they were empty-handed. So, next one down. You guys have any questions about those things? Yes, ma'am.
How long does that last?
It will come with an expiration date. Different manufacturers have different expiration dates. If it doesn't have an expiration date, I would question the quality of the product. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
You had talked about the device for the car. Where can we find one of those?
You can go online. I can't remember the name. I just looked at one the other day, and they're not very expensive. They're like 75, 80 bucks, and then the monthly cost is pretty cheap, 14, 16 bucks, something like that monthly to keep them up and keep them going.
And you said, oh, I'm sorry. I had bought an OC spray when that guy was here last year, whatever, but somebody broke in my car and stole it. Of course, they never did. And it's gone. So where can we get more of those? I need one now.
You know what? I'll find that information. We'll put it back out and get it to you guys. What stores are selling those? For a while, nobody would sell one unless you were law enforcement. Some stores would not sell to an individual. I think On Target has them. Several of your firearm stores would have those things available, and they probably wouldn't put it out there unless it was a fairly quality product. Am I kind of limited on time?
No,
Or do you
I
think
just
was getting ready to
want
go?
to
Please.
say something here too. I was recently at the NCAR convention, and there were several displays out there about the tasers, and they have them now, like one end is a flashlight, and one end is a taser, so that all they have to do is touch you, you know? So if you've got your flashlight and somebody comes up and wraps their arm around you, all you gotta do is go like this and zap them, and you know. So there's a lot of different things out there, and these things seem to be reusable. I mean, you just, you know, and there was a group there at the convention, but there are things that they were small, handy, not like he's got where you gotta pull it out and shoot somebody. It's just, it was a contact thing where, you know, like I said, you have your flashlight in hand, so it doesn't look like, you know, you're carrying a gun. You know, it looks like you're carrying a flashlight in to look at a house, which we do a lot. But those are some of the things that they had at the convention recently, so you can probably go onto the NCAR website and check it out there too.
Thank you. I will say, know what the product does when you buy it. The reason why, and what she's referring to is what we more commonly refer to as a stun gun and not a taser, which means the incapacitation, and incapacitation sometimes is questionable, but it only lasts as long as the two probes are held to the individual for contact. Now, a taser will do that. You take the cartridge off the end and you can do what we refer to as a drive stun, which is somewhat effective. But the product that Taser makes doesn't look like our tasers. It doesn't have a handle like a gun. It looks more like a, for lack of a better term, it looks more like an electric shaver. It's kind of got a handle that's bent this way, and then the cartridge is on the end. It is not a reloadable cartridge. And what I will tell you is the difference between the two: a stun gun, marginally effective. A taser, they're probably not going to fight through a taser. 9 out of 10 times, if both probes connect when you discharge a taser, I can tell you I'm not fighting through a taser. You're going to have the opportunity to get going.
Sheriff, I hear all the time, I'm going to get a gun, I'm going to get this one. Can you talk a little bit about mindset and being prepared to actually use it?
Absolutely. Unless you're willing to take on all the, and I'm a Second Amendment supporter, you know, we generally have 14 people in the county responding to calls for service. Unless I could tell you that I could be at your house in 30 seconds every time you call, I would never tell somebody that they didn't have the right to be able to defend their house. With that, I also say, if you're going to use the firearm option, or you're going to work that into your personal safety plan, there's a lot that comes along with that. There's actually the skill set and the maintenance of the firearm. Where are you going to carry it? What are you going to do with it when you get to places to where you can't carry the weapon inside? Like you said, you had your pepper spray stolen from a car. Firearms are a very valuable target that folks, if they know they're in your vehicle, that they will attempt to get. So I'm not discouraging it, but as Alan says, there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with it, and if you're willing to take that on, I encourage you, but don't do one without the other.
Can you shoot somebody?
Okay, North Carolina, let's talk about that really quick. North Carolina extended the castle doctrine, which means if you are in your residence and somebody breaks into your residence, it is a given that a reasonable person would think that person is breaking in to do them serious bodily injury or death, which is where you have to be to use deadly force in North Carolina. Same way for a law enforcement officer. When you are out in the public, you have to show as a civilian that you did not have the opportunity of retreat. Somebody can present that threat, but if you had a way to get away from it, not re-engage, do that kind of thing, you have to show that to be legally justified in the state. That's where law enforcement officers are a little different from the general public, but really much of the same rules apply, whether you're a civilian or a sworn law enforcement officer. It's just that civilians have to show that you didn't have the opportunity of retreat. North Carolina kind of extended that castle doctrine to your place of business and to your vehicle, to where if somebody's trying to break in your vehicle and you're in it driving, you can kind of, you know, you can make that jump as a reasonable person that you're at the level of deadly force, because it's pretty much inferred if somebody's trying to break into your vehicle to get to you, they're probably going to do serious bodily injury or death, right? Same thing with the residents. If you're out showing a house, I would say that it's just like you're out anywhere else in the public. In that, you would have to show that you didn't have the opportunity of retreat. But I would also say, in the situations that y'all are going to be in a residence where somebody's called you out and then they try to do you harm, a reasonable person would believe that you would be at that use of deadly force much quicker in that situation. Does that make sense? Now, we can sit and what if it all day, but the reasonable person would think that if somebody has called you there, they have, for lack of a better term, kind of lured you into a place to get you one-on-one. I would say, and there's a lot of factors that go into play too. A smaller statured female and a male, the female can step up that use of force quicker than can another same size male. Those things kind of go into that reasonable person equation to whether or not you acted correctly when it goes to court. So Here's the big question. Unless you're used to carrying a firearm every day, are you prepared